Hi everyone, so I'm off to the local home brewers group, the Beds and Hearts beer group down at Luton this evening, and I'm going to be dropping off some of these beers that I'm putting in for my first ever competition. So I thought I'd just do a quick video about that and just talk about what I'm putting in and yeah, what's involved in the competition. So I'm not actually going to be here for the competition weekend, which is over the 16th and 17th, because I'm going to a stag do over in Prague. So I'm going to be drinking lots of Pilsner over there and getting up to all sorts of other debauchery, while my beers here are going through the competition, which is the National Association of Wine and Beer Makers competition. The guys down at the group in Luton, a lot of the people who organise and run that are quite involved in organising and running that competition, so they were kind of encouraging a lot of the members to chuck some bottles in, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm also taking a few more of these down to be kind of judged against the other group's entries to see if they can go in for the free bottle club entry as well. So various brewing groups and clubs put together a free bottle group of beers that go into the competition. So a IPA, English IPA, dry stout and a barley wine. I haven't got any barley wine, but I've got a dry stout and an English IPA. The IPA is there and the stout's there, which I'm putting both of those in as individual entries, but they're also going to be blind tasted tonight at the group and possibly put forward for the free bottle class as well. We'll see how they go. Right, so what am I putting in for the comp? We've got my English IPA. I'm reasonably hopeful that this one might do all right. It's hopped with Jester, all Jester in the late and middle hops, and dry hop, I think probably Admiral for bittering as well. It's quite nice, not, well, slightly, because it's got the Jester hops in it, I wouldn't say fully kind of traditional taste to it for an English IPA. It's a little bit more maybe fruity than you would expect for something that's just using your kind of typical EKG and so on. The Wee Heavy, this was to a set recipe, which is basically the recipe out of the Graham Wheeler Brew Your Own book, which is for, yeah, it's basically a clone recipe for Belhaven's Wee Heavy. This one, not expecting to do so well. It didn't condition properly, so all the bottles have been pretty flat, and it's just come out really kind of sweet and a bit sickly as a result. So not too hopeful for that one. This one is my dry stout, which I already mentioned. It's just a sort of fairly standard dry stout recipe that I came up with, and again, this one I think has got a chance of potentially doing all right, or at least getting some decent feedback anyway. Yeah, so that one's been quite nice on the samples I've tried of that. This one is my Czech Pilsner, which is going into the heavy lager class, so that it's a fairly sort of open-ended lager class. You can have quite a few different types of beers in this one. It's not like some of the other competitions where it's broken down into lots of different subcategories. Don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it's definitely got nice clarity. I bottled this one off the keg. Tastes really good, packed full of SARS hops, so it's quite tasty. Maybe might be a bit too hopped for classical interpretations of a lager, but we'll see. And then last of all is my English bitter, which I only made a little while ago, which is going into the newcomers class. So apparently, obviously there's less entries for that because it's only for people who are doing like the first competition, and that means that you have a better chance of getting a place on that. So again, hopefully I'll do all right with this one. The one problem that I've got with this beer is I'd made it very late on in the day, and I was using the West Yorkshire yeast, which when I've used it before has been really flocculent and cleared down super quick, and of course this time it's ended up murky as pond water. So I've tried whacking it in the fridge for a couple of days. It's only been in the bottle for, you know, a couple of weeks to be fair, but it's just not clearing down. Yeah, it's almost totally opaque, can't see through it even at the top of the neck there. It's a slightly darker amber type bitter, but even so, should be able to see something through that. So hopefully that won't count against it too much, but we shall see. So that kind of leads me on to what I've learned so far about competitions, which is basically give yourself plenty of time to brew in advance, because I tried to get as many entries in as I could and I didn't have enough time, and as a result things like the bitter haven't had a chance to really, you know, come into proper condition and clear down. So that's something to take forward to the other competitions. I've already got a lot of beers brewing for some other competitions that I'm entering this year, which I'm well in advance for those, so hopefully that won't be as much of an issue with them. But let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's my first comp, so hopefully I'll get some decent feedback at least on a couple of those beers. If I do manage to get a place on anything, I'll be really chuffed with that, but I'm not really expecting too much as it's the first competition. Let's just see how they go, eh? So I'll yeah, if I survive my trip to Prague, I will be back on hopefully with some results from the competition and tell you how they got on. I might even do a quick update on this when I get back tonight to tell you what sort of feedback I got at the club, because obviously with the IPA and the stout I should be getting a little bit of kind of commentary on those beers from the other group members, because we're doing a blind tasting of everyone's beers for the, as I said, for the free bottle entry for the club. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I'm not drinking a beer because I've got to drive down to Luton in a minute. Yeah, maybe I'll see you in a bit. Alright, cheers. Right, so I'm back from the little tasting thing at the club. Really interesting evening actually. So I've dropped my beers off that are going to be taken up to the competition for me next weekend. We did the blind tasting of everyone's beers to see which ones would get put into the free bottle class for the club. So we're all scoring the beers and stuff, and in some ways it went as I expected. So for the IPA, a lot of the people there thought that it was American hopped, even though it was Jester hops, which are English. So I think that counted against it a little bit. I think it was kind of in the middle. I rated it as, without knowing which one was mine, as the second best beer out of the lot, but I think it was probably in the sort of midfield out of the others. There was about 7 beers there in total, so I think it was marked down a bit. So I guess that's maybe one lesson learned really, although I didn't really know what the Jester hops were going to come out like in the IPA. I think certainly looking at trying to stay you know, a bit closer to style, I guess, in terms of hoppage for things like an English IPA might be a bit wiser in future. So that's probably gonna, you know, maybe scupper the chances of that one a little bit in the like the individual entry as well, because it might be perceived as more of an American IPA than an English one. The stout, which I thought was going to have a decent chance of coming into one of the free bottle classes, even I rated it myself as not particularly high up in the field. So yeah, it just kind of came across a bit thin. This was a score sheet that we were filling in tonight, and I think I had it kind of, again, probably joint 4th or 5th out of the 6 beers that we tried. I was convinced that one of the other beers was mine, and it wasn't, that I picked out as being one of the nice ones. Now, I'm kind of clinging to the hope that maybe it was a slightly duff bottle. The other thing that I think didn't help was my beers were pretty cold still from being in the shed, so I think particularly with the stout it could have benefited a bit from being warmed up. But I'm going to try this bottle now and just see if I actually think that it's well, if I recognise the taste from what I tried earlier. The other issue with the stout was it did appear to have very little condition on it, so it didn't come up with much head at all. I did carb these fairly light, because I've had problems in the past with stouts and porters getting quite over carbed fairly rapidly. And I mean, it's not like a massive frothy head, but there's a little bit of condition there. I think the way that the beers are poured out at these tasting things, they tend to take it very gently, and if it's not massively carved you don't get much of a head on it. But that's decent. Yeah, I mean, I have had a cold recently, but I've got to admit it doesn't really smell of an awful lot. What did I give it for aroma? I think it was about 6 out of 10. Not the worst out of all of them, but anyway, I'm going to give it a quick taste and see what I think of it now that I know what I'm drinking. Yeah, see, it's weird because when you're blind tasting stuff, you seem to get a totally different perception on it, and that tastes a lot different to me to how I tried it when we didn't know what the beer was. But anyway, interesting. So overall, probably a little bit of a reality check in terms of how much of a chance those beers have got. Couple of lessons learned, probably. Try not to bring your beer to tastings too cold, and maybe stick a little bit closer to the style guidelines for certain things if you want to, you know, avoid them beers being marked down basically for not tasting quite right. So again, it's a little bit annoying when they are actually English hops, but people perceive them to be American hops. But there you go. Jester hops are marketed as being quite fruity and tropical tasting, so maybe stick with the more traditional ones. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I'm still quite looking forward to seeing how the beers go in the actual competition. The judges will be different, the people tasting the beer, so you never know. Might get some of them coming back. The beers that weren't tried this evening, I've still got, you know, still interested to see how they get on. I'm thinking now probably the lager might be the one that might have the best chance of actually doing something in the competition, but we'll see. I'll probably get fuck all out of all of them, but hopefully get some useful feedback for improving the beers. So yeah, I will come back on this one once the competition results are in and see how they all get on. So cheers everybody, and I'll see you after Prague.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, you know, El Duderino.